call the meeting to order.
Okay, thank you. Flag right on the blackboard right there. Please, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The meeting has been called to order by our Chairman, Lawrence Winfrey. Time now is 1:50.
Once again, I want to remind you that our old friend Bob Graziano, Sergeant at Arms, at the last minute he had to call me and had to back out. He's not feeling well, he's sweating, he can't breathe, and you know he has a weight problem. So and a lot of us have agreed that we're going to call him and remind him it's time to see a doctor.
I already left a message with him when I would.
If you want his number, I'll repeat his number.
Repeat it again.
718-964-8525. That's 718-964-8525. I mean, last year I lost 6 friends to obesity. I mean, and the youngest one was, yes, the youngest one was only 48. The day I met her, I knew she was not going to live to be old because she weighed 464 pounds at 5'4", saying, "I'm not going to change with anybody. She's too young to stop eating." 464 pounds. She is not on 5'4" at that weight. Is not on any scale, but half her weight is morbidly obese. If she weighed 232, just half her weight, she would be morbidly obese. One heart was carrying two morbidly obese. Another guy, no, he was 6'7", he weighed 350, and he just passed at age 60. And I mean, I thought that with his height, you could handle it, you know, but apparently not.
Aren't they prone to diabetes
Yes.
when they get that heavy?
Alton wants to speak. Alton.
Okay, yes. Well, I want to make a quick announcement. I was just at the Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. It closed about a couple of weeks ago. And this is a conference where you have all these liberty-minded groups, and we have speakers, we have breakout sessions, we have little forums, we have speakers, you can have Q&A. Lots of fun. It's like 3 days, 4 days. It's at Las Vegas. Okay? It was a Planet House. Of course, you have a little coin over there, by the way. And we had as a guest speaker George Foreman, believe it or not. Barry King was there. John Stouser usually makes, you know John Stouser, right?
Yeah.
He usually did a show at these conferences, but he had a remission of his cancer, lung cancer. He had to skip this year. But the Tea Party Patriots had a table there. People buy tables, you know, have these all these groups there. The Tea Party Patriots have one. Conservatives groups, Heritage Foundation, and you know, everyone was there. You know, it was a lot of fun. Next year will be their 10th anniversary version. The speaker will be Captain Kirk. You know, William Shatner will be talking. You know, and we'll be at the Paris Hotel next year. So you know, you can make it. It's a lot of fun. You know, and one of my highlights is that I went to the shooting range where I got to shoot a couple of machine guns. You know, when you could do that, it's a hell of a lot of fun. So you know, we got this here, and I picked up these little magnetic things. These people with MRC, they talk about bias media. They had a lot of speakers this year. You know, July 19th, I think, 4 or 5 days, and you get to go to Paris Hotel. Okay.
Whoever wants to don't believe the media, don't believe the liberal media, go see Alton. He has an extra couple.
I think it's Media Research Council.
Media Research Council, yes.
Media Research Council.
Bozell.
What they do,
Bozell.
I can tell you what MRC does mostly is they monitor the mainstream media, and they keep track. Example, in the coming election, they're going to tell you how many minutes they devote to positive stories for Trump and how many minutes devote to positive stories for Hillary, and then vice versa. And you'll see the unbelievable bias being exposed.
And they're going to show you Wolf Blitzer from CNN toasting with a glass of wine.
Okay, anything else before we have our guest speak?
To Hillary.
Okay, we're good. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to our guest speaker.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you very much for inviting me down today. I've been at a couple of your meetings when they were held at the Hunter Steakhouse and made some off-the-cuff comments, but this is a formal address. and I came down here this afternoon to try to enlist you in a cause, a righteous moral crusade. I have a plan to rescue our country, unlike anyone else is talking about. It's a way to cut federal spending 75% without cutting any essential services. And it is particularly pertinent to you because at the same time, while it cuts federal spending so greatly, it also allows the government to reduce taxes and deficits, restore prosperity, while retrieving, recapturing, reclaiming the founders' original vision of liberty. Now I'm going to talk about that plan a little later. By way of introduction, I want to begin by discussing or relating the Tea Party movement in America, which I have been following since the Wall Street trader Rick Santilli suggested back in 2010 that we need a new Tea Party movement. And like that, the Tea Party movement was born. I want to relate the Tea Party movement to a movement that I'm afraid has overshadowed the Tea Party movement this year, and that is the Trump movement. What is the relation between the Tea Party and the millions of followers who are supporting Donald Trump? Well, if I asked you this question, by a show of hands, if you believe this country is headed in the wrong direction and the direction desperately needs to be reversed as quickly as possible, by a show of hands, how many of you would concur, would agree with that? I expected no less. Well, I believe that the Trump followers agree with you. They share the fears and anxieties that we in this room have about the direction the country has been headed for quite some time. They understand that government is spending too much, taxes are too high, the cost of complying with regulations are impossible, on and on and on. They share something else with you, and that is that they believe it is now time to get political, even though if every year prior to 2015, they were not political at all. That is true of the Tea Party, and I've spoken to dozens of Tea Party groups since 2010. And I know that Tea Party members are not academics, not professors, not with a huge lifelong interest in politics. Basically, Tea Party members and Trump's followers are people who were just leading their lives, bringing their kids to soccer practice or Girl Scouts or something, and at a certain point in time, you, the Tea Party movement, and Donald Trump's followers realized that things are getting very bad in this country and have grave fears for the future opportunities their children and grandchildren will face in this country. As a matter of fact, opinion polls tell us that we are the first adult generation that believe our children will have a tougher time, not an easier time, than the past generations. So that is something else that you have in common with Donald Trump's followers. The difference is, for Trump's followers, they believe the solution to our problem consists in electing Donald Trump. They believe that he is a man who gets things done, and there are a good number of things that he wants to do that needs doing, like taking better care of our vets, like shoring up our national defense, like getting rid of political correctness, so their instincts are correct. I do not believe that Donald Trump holds the solution to our problems, except in a few areas, but basically his understanding is very surface, very perfunctory, and he doesn't have a deeper understanding of the Constitution, the nature of our government, or, for that matter, the nature of liberty. You folks, the Tea Party movement in this country, has something that Donald Trump doesn't have, and that is an understanding of the importance of principles, particularly our founding principles. Instinctively, and from the very beginning of the Tea Party movement, it was understood that the solution has to lie in recovering the understanding the founding fathers had in beginning this country. And you look for the meaning in the Declaration of Independence, in the Constitution, because what Trump and his followers failed to do, they want to make America great again, but they failed to ask what on earth made America great to begin with in the first place. And if you don't know that, you can't even define what greatness is. Well, the Tea Party instinctively understands that the solution lies in returning. If we are heading in the wrong direction, if we need to reverse course, well, the question is, when did we first go off course? And in exactly what way? I'm going to explain that today. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to give you a crash course in the founding principles in a way and on a level you have not heard them explained before. And the reason that is that you can read the Declaration of Independence, which contains our founding principles, from today till the end of time, and you will not fully appreciate what Jefferson wrote down. Because to understand it, you have to read between the lines. And reading between the lines involves understanding a broader context that everyone who signed the Declaration, who read the Declaration, understood. They understood this broader context. The broader context is the political thought of John Locke. And you're going to see parallels now between Jefferson's thought and Locke's thought, but to see exactly how John Locke, fleshes out the principles Jefferson wrote into the Declaration, and that is transferred into the U.S. Constitution as well. Jefferson begins, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Listen to Locke saying the same thing. There is nothing more evident than creatures of the same species and rank, promiscuously born with all the same advantages of nature, should be equal one with another, without subjection or subjugation. This is the full meaning of equality. Jefferson says we hold these truths to be self-evident. By 1776, it was self-evident. But Locke was more careful. He said there is nothing more evident than individuals sharing the same advantages of nature, all having the same needs and the same capacities to satisfy those needs, should be equal without subjection or subjugation. Locke would also say that we are all the children of God. We are under his command, sent into the world to do his business, his bidding, not one another's. And there's another statement that Locke makes which even goes further. Locke begins his philosophy in a state of nature. Simply, there is no government. But what he's really talking about is human nature, the nature of man as such. So in this state of nature, he says, in the state of nature, there is a law of nature to govern it. And reason, which is that law, teaches all mankind who will but consult it, that we are all equal, and that no one may harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions. And no one may harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions. Now, John Locke needed a means of actualizing this understanding about human nature. What he needed is the concept of natural rights. In other words, we are imbued, endowed, not just with 2 arms, 2 legs, and 2 eyes, but with the natural, inherent right to stand on our own feet, look at the world through our own eyes, and choose our own course of action in life. And no one may interfere with that. In the United States, it simply is called the American Creed, live and let live. Okay, so there are rights. Now, he's going to identify what these rights are. Well, the first right, the fundamental right, is the right to life, which is the right to live our lives. And so you immediately have a corollary, liberty. It is how we live our lives, by exercising our liberty, and no one may deprive us of that. Now, as you all know, we are creatures with many material needs and wants and desires, and with the capacity to satisfy those needs and wants through our actions. But because they are material, we have the right not just to life and liberty, but the right of property. And he defines it very simply: the right to gain, keep, use, trade, or otherwise dispose of our freely acquired possessions. What we have is ours, and cannot be taken away. 3 rights: life, liberty, and property. Go ahead.
And I would stand, but quick question. Why did Jefferson change it to pursuit of happiness?
I can answer that question during the question period.
Okay.
I don't want to get off track. There is a 4th right that Locke identifies, every bit as natural and inherent and unalterable as life, liberty, and property. That 4th right is a right of self-defense. In other words, if we are living in a state of nature before there is government, and we have the right to gain, keep, and use, and trade, and dispose of our possessions, no one has a right to deprive us of those possessions or of those rights. Deprivation of a right is the exact definition of a wrong, a moral wrong. And so we have originally in ourselves, the right to defend all that's ours. Those are our 4 rights. We have no more. Why on earth does government arise? Why do we find ourselves in government? Locke says very simply, although these are the moral rights with which we are born, humankind is, on the whole, no great defender of our rights, no protector of our rights. In other words, as we all know from reading any newspaper any day of the year, there are many people who would wantonly violate our rights and think nothing of doing it. Well, we cannot live our lives planting our crops and harvesting our crops and studying for the bar exam and everything we do while we're busy defending our rights. What we require is an agency possessing a monopoly on the rightful use of force in order to defend our rights and allow us to live. What we need is government. That's all government is. An agency that has a monopoly on the use of force. And so we form a social contract. I put that on the board as well. A social contract. We agree not to become vigilantes, not to take the rule of law in our hands, but to depend on an objective, settled, and known rule of law to defend our rights and rectify all grievances, and punish the offenders to make sure other offenders know if you commit the crime, you're going to do the time. And there we have the origin of government and the purpose of government, the sole purpose of government. Now, Jefferson continues in saying that to secure these rights, government is instituted among people, deriving its just powers from the consent of the governed. That is critical, because you have to ask the question, how limited is government to be? What powers can government properly claim? Well, we do not belong to government so that it may deprive us of our lives, or our liberties, or our possessions. We only require government and depend on government to better protect and defend those rights. In order to do that, what we do is give up one of those 4 rights, the only right we have any reason to give up, and that is our right of self-defense. We agree, again, not to take the law in our own hands, but to rely on a rule of law. And this establishes the sole power government may rightfully claim, the power to defend the people, all the people, in the enjoyment of all that is theirs, their lives, their liberties, and their possessions. Government may not